Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today on this webinar. I am Jincy George. I am a talent management consultant with ARIA Consulting. They say the secret of your success is determined by your daily agenda. So kudos to all of you leaders for putting your own preparedness and your own development on your agenda for the day. And joining this webinar on leading in turbulent times. Terry Gillis, President and CEO of ARIA Consulting, will be the speaker for the day. And since we have a big gathering, we have put everybody on mute. However, I encourage all of you to use your Q&A and your chat icon at the bottom of your screen to ask questions or to chime in during the webinar. All questions will be kept anonymous, so you can feel comfortable asking questions that you have. A recording of this webinar will be sent to you tomorrow. It will also be sent to those folks who registered but were unable to attend today. At the end of the webinar, you will be directed to a feedback survey, and we will highly appreciate it if you could take out 2 minutes to complete that survey. Thanks again for joining, everybody. Over to you, Terry.
Thank you very much, Jincy, and good afternoon, everybody. And to just echo what Jincy said, thank you for joining us. I think it's almost peculiar to say that it's becoming cliche to say these are remarkable and unprecedented times that we are in. Leaders have never been tested as much as this, as quickly as this in many, many years, and I'd argue probably in a long period of history. Interesting, many aspects of this webinar we first shared with the business community here in London and Southwestern Ontario right after the economic crisis of 2008. Some of you may remember that. Surprisingly, or not, much of what we will share with you today we shared back then as well. So we'll dive right into it. The first thing that I would point out is never waste a crisis. This has been attributed to a number of people, including Rahm Emanuel, who was in Obama's cabinet, his chief of staff. But you can trace it back even further in history to Winston Churchill during World War II. In challenging times, of course, like we're in now, there's two options. One is we can look with despair and no hope and think that there is no tomorrow. Or for those of you who might be following Terry Talks on aria.ca, that's AHRIA.ca. Last week we did a Terry Talk, and I posed the question, what's the opportunity in this? And when we change our frame of thinking, when we look at things from a different point of view, and we look for or ask the question, what is the opportunity in this crisis? I think we stand a very good chance of not wasting it. The reality of any crisis, of course, is that there's really two phases that any leader will go through in a crisis scenario. The first one, I think, is one that we all arrived to earlier this week in our businesses, and that's the emergency phase. That's when your task becomes stabilization, and quite frankly, most of us were trying to buy some time. We were trying to buy some time to get better information, to get a better view, to get a better line of sight on the situation as it was unfolding and continues to do so today. Of course, the second phase is the adaptive phase, and I'm really hopeful and starting to sense that we're moving slowly to that phase. And that's the phase where you tackle the crisis head on and you start to build the capacity to thrive in the new reality, which we're now all facing. However, sadly, panic and fear, of course, can take root and derail our ability to get to that adaptive phase. And there's a little thing in psychology, I'm sure most of you know about it, called learned helplessness. And learned helplessness is that behavior that no matter the challenge we face, we think we are completely helpless. And learned helplessness, when panic and fear takes over and learned helplessness sets in, leads to low productivity and greater likelihood of depression. So how do we get beyond that? I think we get beyond that by leading through transition more effectively. And this may seem counterintuitive, but first, I'm going to argue we need to assess ourselves first. We need to start with ourselves. We need to figure out, what do we need to start doing? What are the things we need to stop doing? And what are the things that we need to continue doing? And of course, when you have completed that, then you can help others. But it isn't until you've sort of taken stock of yourself and figured out what you need to start, what you need to stop, and what you need to continue doing. The first stop, sorry, that makes no sense when I'm saying start. The first thing that we need to start doing is look to planning and focusing our mental energies. With respect to a plan, what are the three most critical goals for the day? What are the three most critical goals for the week? I'd argue right now and over the past week, we have been focusing pretty much on daily plans, daily goals. That will change. When you have your plan, of course, we need to communicate it. It's no good for you to know the plan and nobody else has a clue what's happening. And of course, with any plan, ask for help. If you get burned out as a leader, you're of no value to anybody, including yourself. So ask for help. The other important piece to start thinking about is, where are you focusing your mental energy? I've always said, and I teach business at a university, and I joke with my students all the time saying any business problem can be described using a 2x2 matrix. So I'm going to use a 2x2 matrix to talk about where we can focus our mental energies. Across the top, you can see that there are two columns, what you can control and what you can't control. And then there are two rows, what you're thinking about and what you're not thinking about. When you are thinking about those things that you can't control, that's constructive problem solving. That's opportunity seeking. That's future focused. But when you're thinking about things that you cannot control, that's simply endless worrying. It's kind of like my mother, who every day is worried about the weather. You can't control that. It's a lot of wasted energy. When you're not thinking about the things that you can't control, well, that's a missed opportunity, or perhaps living in a fantasy world or living in denial. I'd argue some of us might still be there, but we're going to move out of that box. And then finally, if you're not thinking about the things you cannot control, then that's just a great conservation of energy and a great understanding of reality. So one of the things I would challenge everybody who's listening, everybody who's hearing this, is before your head hits the pillow tonight, before the sun sets tonight, take a moment and start to regain a sense of control. Here's how you do it. Grab a piece of paper, do it on your laptops, on your iPads, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But divide that page in half. On the one side, put control, things that I can control. And on the other side, put down things that I cannot control. We cannot control the coronavirus. We cannot control the COVID-19 illness. What we can control are the actions that we take. Create that list. Take a few moments, jot down some ideas. Because when you know what you can control and what you cannot control, it helps you focus your energies. And then I think we need to move on to shifting your center of control. Most of us know this. We've known for years, from study after study after study around well-being and resilience. We know that the internal sense of control, a belief in your own abilities, that you can shape your life, that you can control your life, that leads to better coping, and that leads to better confidence, and confidence breeds success. We will experience less stress, we'll bounce back faster from setbacks, and achieve goals more readily than people who see control outside of themselves, those that think that things are happening to them. If you believe that you're at the mercy of the forces outside of yourself, like fate or other more powerful people, or you see yourself as weak or a victim of some unchangeable character flaw, you will experience greater stress. The good news is, though, that we can change that center of control. It's a learned behavior. We can monitor our self-talk and change it. What's some of the self-talk? If you have an internal control, you know, I have choices. I can take action. I can do something about this. I expect outcomes based on my own personal efforts. If, on the other hand, your center of control is more externally focused, you're going to blame yourself. It's my fault. I should have. Or It's impossible. I can't do that. Or this is just bad luck. Or if only I had planned better for a pandemic. Nobody saw this coming. So shift your center of control. Our beliefs control our thoughts, and in turn control our feelings, and in turn impact the actions that we take. So by focusing on our beliefs that you are in control, think of how powerful this would be for you if you can change your thoughts and impact feelings and impact actions. It'll be phenomenally beneficial to you as a leader. So what are some of the things we need to stop doing? Well, first of all, I would suggest we all turn off the news. Up until about midday yesterday, I was a voracious appetite. I had a voracious appetite for news. I had news flashes coming on my phone. At one point yesterday, I was actually watching the Dow Jones Industrial Average in real time. By about noontime, I was ready to throw up. I wonder why. News right now is incredibly negative. And not surprisingly, for those, you may have heard this before, but human beings, we're an odd bunch. We thrive on negativity. We love negativity. If you look at all the emotional words in the English language, over 2/3 of them are negative in connotation. But it doesn't help us. We know that consumption of negative news causes stress and distraction at a time you can least afford it. We suggest that, like, just in the same way that you might be traveling on a airplane or on a noisy train, and yes, we will get back there. We will do that again. You have noise canceling headphones. They're wonderful. The whole outside world just disappears. Try bringing that into your world. Things like meditation or self-reflection. I know for some people, including myself, up until fairly recently, I thought that was kind of weird stuff. I got to tell you, it's working really well. And change the ratio. Start your day focusing on something positive. Just yesterday, I got an email from somebody. It was so incredibly enlightening and so uplifting. It was 20 key positive facts about the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic. They were talking about the woman, 103-year-old woman in China, who actually beat the disease in 6 days. They talked about the number of cases declining in China. They talked about 4 or 5 different university consortiums and partnerships that are building vaccines at a record pace. They talked about in India, there was a trial of a cocktail of drugs that helped people and turned them around really quickly. That's positive thing. That's positive stuff. I challenge anybody to go and try and find that on the headlines of Fox News, CNBC, or CNN. It's not there because that doesn't sell click-throughs. Speaking of click-throughs, remember, our phones and our computers are remarkable. They track everything that you do. And we found it odd when you're on Facebook or one of those social media sites and an ad pops up and you go, how did they know I was thinking about that? Because they track what you click through. So if you're clicking through on news, guess what? You're going to get fed negative news constantly. I don't know about you. I've kind of had enough of it. I've turned off the news. I'm not looking at the Dow Jones. This will pass. I can't do anything about it right now, so I'm choosing to ignore it. We all know the impact of negative news. There's studies done years ago. One where they took 2 groups of people, they put one into where they reviewed negative news up until before 10 a.m. in the morning, and the second group had not saccharine, sugary kind of news, but just solution-focused news. They let them watch that between 9 and 10 o'clock. And then at the end of the day, they asked those people how their day went. There was a whopping 27% greater likelihood at the end of the day of people reporting themselves as being unhappy if they've been exposed to negative news. We also know the impact of optimism. There was years ago, back in the 80s, Seligman did a great study, world famous study on insurance salespeople in metropolitan life and found that those optimistic salespeople outsold their pessimistic counterparts by a score of at least 30 to 40%. That's incredible, incredible. So the other thing I think we need to be doing is starting to mitigate fear. Now, courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. And of course, being a leader certainly doesn't mean charging ahead blindly into the face of any adversity. It does mean you can't allow your fear to become contagious. Your team needs to believe you're in control of yourself. And if they're to have high confidence that they can make smart decisions in tough times because you are demonstrating lack of fear. So what do we need to continue? I think we need to continue our decision making. Let's try not to overreact. There are many actions people should take over the next several weeks and months, but the decision to act should be based on deliberation, on reflection on the data, and discussion with experts, not in reaction to a headline or a tweet that comes screaming across our phones and our computers. So, how do you make good decisions in the face of these psychological factors? The best way to resist the siren call of action is to slow down. Panic makes people want to act right now to avoid the threat. But most of the actions you're going to take will likely not be prudent in the face of this potential pandemic. Here's the reality. We all know the fight or flight mechanism. When we're in flight or fight mode, all that rich, oxygenated, highly fueled blood that the brain craves gets sucked out of your brain and goes to the muscles. It essentially makes you about at the same cognitive ability as a rhesus monkey. You're making decisions with no fuel in the tank. Not good decision making. Slow down, take your time. And of course, I would be remiss to be talking about leadership if I didn't talk about continue to focus on your people. Re-recruit your people. What does that mean? Tell your employers you need them, you want them. Make them know that they're critical to the success of your organization. And yes, even if you face the tough decision in the coming weeks of some leaves or layoffs to sustain your organization or sustain your company, let them know they're critical to the business. And as soon as things get back to normal, everything inside the organization will get back to normal as soon as it's possible. Communication is key. Communication early and often. In a fast-moving, uncertain situations like we're in, many people will face questions they don't have the answers to. So be early with your message, be often with your message, and of course, be honest and transparent. This isn't the time to hide things. This is the time to share as much information as you have. Post information. If you are still in a workplace, if you're in manufacturing or in an organization where you can't work from home and employees are still there, make sure you are communicating, not just verbally, but through written communication as well. For those that are telecommuting now, virtual workplaces, email, the company intranet, Slack, whatever, make sure you're posting information. Describe how your decisions are being made about issues like traveling, working from home, etc., and communicate right now, I'd argue, no less than every day. Now, some people are probably scratching their head saying, people aren't communicating every day. Yes, because we get in bad habits as leaders and we forget to do that. And try to provide timely information rather than waiting until you know all the answers. So to help with that, I've got some great ideas. What about saying, I'm giving you today's truth, it could change tomorrow? What about if this is what I know is changing and this is what I know is not changing? Or I'm giving you all the information I have, I don't know anything else. We're all in this together. We're all going through the same change. It's important that we stick together. The key is keep communicating. And when you've done that, keep on communicating. As C. Northcott Parkinson said, and I love this quote, that the void created by the failure to communicate is soon filled with poison, drivel, and misrepresentation. Let's not create voids. We've got enough poison, drivel, and misrepresentation right now in our lives. Let's not give it more of an opportunity to blossom and grow. And here's a quick little tip. When technology fails, and you know what, it's going to fail, and it's going to fail at the worst possible moment, make sure you have a backup way of getting in touch and giving information to your employees. Just last night at our house, our internet went down for an hour. Wow, that was a shock to the system. But we rebounded, we're back, we're good, but plan for all those eventualities. I'd also argue the things we can keep doing is reducing the unknowns. There's lots of unknowns. When you know something, share it. And look for ways to tailor the work. You may be now forcing or be forced to be doing more with less. Tailor the task. This is a great opportunity to get reacquainted with your employees. Remember their strengths. Ask them to help you identify their strengths. Leverage their strengths. This is not a time, I don't think, to be pushing things onto people that's a weakness just so they feel even more stress than they already have. I also think I'm a big fan of control. Employees need control. It's a little thing called agency, which is defined as the capacity for individuals to act independently and to make their own free choices. Agency or control causes people to seek out actions that will make them feel more in control. What How did we see this? Well, very early on in this pandemic, it took in the form of people mass buying hand sanitizer and rubbing alcohol. That made sense because they could use that to disinfect people and surfaces that might lead to the spread of viruses. But once those stocks dwindled, people still felt like, I need to get some control. So then we had to run on toilet paper and paper towels and bottled water, purchases that make not as much sense, and certainly were not being advocated by any experts that I heard of. Still, those purchases allowed them to ease their anxiety and make them feel like they were doing something. Let's give them that inside our organizations. And finally, empathy. Empathy is that magical elixir that can make all the difference. The bottom line, everybody is feeling stress right now. Everybody is confused. Many people are fearful. Walk a mile in their shoes. Put yourself in their shoes. Take a look at life from their perspective and empathize with them. It will serve you amazingly. Like we ended yesterday, I would argue that we need to keep calm and wash your hands. I'd also suggest that we need to keep calm and isolate. Or a great tweet today by my friend Chris Mackey, the London Middlesex Medical Officer of Health. He said maybe we should be dropping the notion of social distancing, not the concept, but the notion, instead saying we need social cohesion right now. We just need physical distancing. Let's not abandon each other. Human beings are social beings. Human beings are tribal beings. We need the social interaction. This is not the time to socially distance ourselves. This is the time to physically distance ourselves, but still have that social cohesion. So hats off to my friend Chris Mackey. Well done. So I think I've met my timeline, maybe a little early, maybe a little late, hard to say. So I'm going to end it there. And I'll ask Jinsey to moderate any questions or comments that you may have. We will be continuing to do this. This gives us good things to be doing at a time when things are a little bit uncertain. Next week, we'll be running some more webinars. We hope you enjoy these. Next week, we're going to be running, making the most of working from home. So could be good for some of your employees who find themselves in that situation, a little bit different than what we offered earlier this week. And the other one is supporting employees in transition. We all know that some employees right now are facing some transitions with respect to employment, and we're going to be offering up some ideas around that and making some announcements around how we're going to be able to support you and your organizations, your employees who might be facing that. So that'll be next week. Stay tuned for more information, and we'll get that out to you. Always, as always, come back over to aria.ca, ahria.ca, for more information. So I'll be quiet now.
Thank you so much, Terry. In fact, I have a lot of participants thanking you on the chat window for a great session. I also have a lot of them asking whether we will be sharing the slides. We will be sharing the recording of the webinar with all of you. You will be receiving it in an email tomorrow, and the webinar recording will definitely have a view of the slides on them. So we're open for questions, and if you have more questions for us or ideas for webinars that we should be doing, we are most welcome at this point.
Jinsey just wanted to remind it, sitting on the screen right in front of us here. I did want to give a shout out to our partners at Tech Alliance. You notice them at the front of the slide deck and at the end of the slide deck, who have been helping us promote this. We're part of a series that they're putting together. So just a quick shout out to our Tech Alliance friends. Didn't want to feel like that we missed you.
Absolutely. Okay, this would be a great time for your questions, and if you have any comments, any ideas for us.
So it's one question here, Jinsey. Somebody's asking if there will be more information available on leadership and what they can be doing by. Yes, so we will be continuing to roll out our webinars over the course of the next several weeks as we continue to navigate through this change. As always, if you have groups of people or in your organizations and want more information, please reach out to us. We have a whole plethora of opportunities to share leadership techniques and whatnot. And for the foreseeable future, we're going to be helping as much as we possibly can. So feel free to reach out on those. So.
Thank you, Terry. Terry, we have a question here. Can you identify what we can control? My team is a bit stuck on this.
Sure. Um, well, what we can control right now, of course, are our own actions. I think what we're doing, I got to tell you, in the last 24 hours, the mere fact that I've turned off the news, I got to tell you, I feel like $1,000,000. It's not that I'm ignoring what's going on. I'm aware that there's still lots going on in the world. But I mean, I was reading news every 15 minutes. I had CNN popping up on my screen. And every time I read something, it was just negative, negative. I think that's something that you can control, and something that I'll be honest, it was a bit like an addiction. But turning it off made the difference. I think we can control our own thoughts. I think we can try to control our own emotions. I think we can control how we're acting inside our businesses. Clearly, what we can't control right now are market forces, which are outside of our sphere of influence right now. I think that's abundantly clear. But this is a great opportunity. It's something we're doing here at ARIA. We're taking a step back and we're saying, okay, what is the need right now in our marketplace? And that's why we're bringing these webinars to you. That's something that everybody can control. I've been a firm believer my whole life that if you're going to be in business, you should be in business for a reason. And that reason is to help solve problems that exist for others. That's our mantra. That's why our tagline is transforming work. We believe fundamentally in that everybody who goes to work every single day should have a great place to work. Nobody should go to work feeling ill. No one should go to work feeling distressed. You shouldn't go to work and somebody asks you, how's your day going? You say, it's Monday, as if that's a bad thing. You should say, it's Monday and I'm glad to be here. That's our mantra. So we're taking a step back because it's something we can control, and making sure that the solutions that we're building and continue to build are relevant to our customers and folks like yourself on this webinar. I think those are the things that we can be focusing on right now. We can't control where this is going just yet. So let's not spend a lot of time there. So you can, somebody just put on the chat line here, you can get exercise, eat well, be kind to people. One of the things I love about crises, which is sad in some ways that it takes a crisis to create this, but it's like the explosion in London in August. Community comes together. I'm always so emotionally moved by that. It's incredible. We can be kind to each other. We can be talking to each other. We can be positive force. And you know what we can do? And somebody put it on the chat line, so I'll give them credit. You know who you are. Tuning out negative people. I just high five to you for that one. That's phenomenal. So, and you can control, focus on priority projects that you haven't gotten to in the past. I'm actually really looking forward to. We've had a project here. We've been trying to fix a database for probably the better part of 6 months, and it keeps getting dropped down to the priority list because we're quote unquote busy. I know in the next couple of weeks, as things kind of settle out a little bit, we're gonna have some time. That's at the top of our list now, and I got to be honest, as sad as that may sound, maybe it's nesting, I don't know. I'm excited to dig into that project. So those are some of the things I think that we can do. And for those of you who don't know me, I will apologize ahead of time. I'm a maritimer, so I do like to talk. So.
I also have someone on the chat window, Terry, saying that they want to give a shout out to TBK. They were the ones who let everybody know about the webinar, apparently.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you, TBK. They're doing some amazing things right now, as I understand it, with helping organizations set up virtual offices. So I'll give a shout out back to them. So thank you for that. Again, you see what a great example of community. What a great example of coming together and helping each other out. I don't know where this pandemic's going to end. It will end. I don't know when. I don't know how. But what I do know is we're going to be better for it. And that's what's exciting for me. We will be better for this. Maybe it was maybe it's like the person who has a heart attack and finally starts eating properly. I don't know. But I'm looking for the good in this, because the opposite of looking for the bad, that's just a negative hole. I don't really want to go down. So I hope that's helpful and not too preachy. So.
Not at all. I actually do see a lot of messages, Terry, coming in today on thank you for putting these up, putting these webinars on. So thank you guys for this comments. Really encourages us. Thank you.
I'll be honest. It's a true pleasure for us to be doing this. It gives us some focus at a time when there's a lot of, a lot of negativity. So it's been good for us. And I'll be honest with everybody on this call. This is going to sound kind of cheesy, but it's helped me. It's helped me as a leader. I don't know if you heard me on yesterday's call. I was flat. I wasn't proud of yesterday's webinar. I think there was some good information. I don't want to take away from that. But I wasn't me, and I wasn't me because I was fixated on the negative and not on the positive. I've changed that. It's going to be a journey for me. I know that I'm going to slip up. We all do, but I'm continuing to be optimistic. I'm continuing to be focused on the positive, and we will get through this.
Thank you, Terry. So I think we've gone through the questions we've got. As we end this webinar, folks, you would see a survey for your feedback. We would really appreciate you taking some time out to tell us what you thought about the webinar and also your ideas for future webinars. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Be good, and we'll hopefully connect with you again next week on either Tuesday or Thursday.